Hi, this is Arash and welcome to the Epoxy channel. In this channel, we're going to talk about the epoxy resins from the theoretical aspects to the most practical ones. So if this is the first video that you're watching, or if you're interested in epoxy resins, please like and subscribe to our channel for more videos. Today, I'm going to present handling properties of epoxy resins. We often sometimes see the term pot life in the TDS of epoxy resins. But what is the meaning of the pot life? Pot life is the amount of time a given mass of mixed resins hardener will remain in the liquid state at a specific temperature. It is seen as the length of the time that a mixed or catalyzed coating system retains a viscosity low enough to be applied to a surface. Pot life begins with the mixing of the components and when mixing is complete, and ends when the mix is unsuitable for application anymore. It allows you to compare the relative rate of reaction or cure speed of various resins, hardeners, compositions. Objectively, pot life is a defined time during which the viscosity of the mixed system doubles. For example, if the mixed resin system has an initial viscosity of 10,000 centipoise and the viscosity increases to 20,000 centipoise after 13 minutes, then the pot life is 13 minutes. Often the pot life is also known as the working time or usable life. Working time is used to describe how long a coating can be applied before it begins to cure. But what is the difference between these two? Unlike pot life, which is determined when the viscosity doubles, working life is not a specific term. Although the results are the same, the coating can no longer be applied smoothly. An epoxy coating mainly consists of two distinct elements, an epoxy resins and a hardener, or the curing agent. As soon as these two elements are mixed, the chemical curing reaction begins. This reaction involves cross-linking of the polymer chains that result in toughening or hardening of the mixture. It has been mentioned that the time from mixing the two elements together to the point at which the mixture is no longer usable for application is known as pot life. Although not always the case, the pot life is sometimes indicated by the increase in mixture viscosity and temperature. After the pot life has been exceeded, nothing can take the mixture back to its ideal state for applications. The mixture will either have become too thick to spread or form a nice thin film. It's not usable anymore. The pot life of an epoxy coating depends on the number of factors. One of the well-known factors is temperature. The higher temperature of the mixture environment will subsequently speed up the chemical reaction rate and so reduce the pot life. The effect may vary from product to product, but a 10 centigrade rise in the temperature can halve the pot life. Therefore, storing the epoxy resins and hardener agents in cool, sheltered places around 15 centigrades prior to use, as well as working at low ambient temperature, is recommended to prolong the pot life. Moreover, as the curing of the epoxy coating is an exothermic reaction or heating generating, the heat will easily build up in the cans and buckets, hence further reduce the pot life. Therefore, pouring in outs into a large surface area, such as a paint tray, will slow down their reactivity. However, those treatments might not always work depending on the type of hardener agents used in the mixture. Using retardants, hardener agents formulation itself plays an important role in extending the pot life. Finally, there are different standards to determine the pot life of the system. For example, ISO 9514 paints and varnishes determination of the path life of multi-component coating systems, preparation condition of samples, and guidelines for testing is a common one. The other term that is often used in epoxy systems is gel time. A thermoset resin system converts from a liquid mixture of chemicals to a solid material that has a high cross-linked polymer as the major structural material. Gel time is the time it takes for a mixed resin system to gel or become so highly viscous that it cannot be longer be considered workable or be able to be handled. The gel time can be measured by tracing the change in viscosities up to a certain point where the viscosity of the sample is so high that it is no longer considered a liquid. Thereafter, the resin will continue its cure from a gel to a solid, which is the final state of the thermoset system. Gel time is often used interchangeably with the path life, although there are some differences. Both terms are used to describe the thickening of an epoxy after it is mixed, but gel time is often tested at elevated temperatures. Technically, gel time defines the end of the application window, and it is often higher than that of path life, as the viscosity might have been doubled, but the system might be still in a workable condition. Shelf life is defined as the length of time a product may be stored without becoming unsuitable for use or consumption. Shelf life depends on the degradation mechanism of the specific product. Epoxy resins and hardener formulation have a long shelf life compared to many polymers. The common shelf life for epoxy product is about 3 years for epoxies and 2 years for normal hardeners, and up to 6 months for reactive hardeners. The shelf life talks about the plump resins or hardener component in the original container, but often there would be epoxy resins or hardener in excessive after the coating or adhesive work. So how to store epoxy leftover? First and foremost, it is important to store epoxy resins and hardener in a cool, dark place with a temperature range of 14 to 95 Fahrenheit. This means avoiding areas that are too hot or too cold, such as direct sunlight or freezing temperatures. A temperature-controlled storage area is an ideal one. Keep all epoxy away from direct constant sunlight exposure. If resin and hardener have been mixed, they should be transferred to an empty container and let to cure. The cured product can be disposed based on waste disposal regulations. The mist system should not be poured into sewage drains. If the amount of excess resins and hardener that have been mixed is huge, separate waste containers for curing have to be used, as the curing is exothermic and heat will be generated during the cure. If we have leftovers of warm pack or pristine hardeners and epoxies which have not been mixed, for example, but they are out of their original containers, the same container can still be used for storing. However, returning the leftovers to the original container is not recommended, as the fresh resin can be contaminated. It has been mentioned that the thermosets are cross-linked, employing a curing agent, and finally, through an irreversible reaction, a hard network is produced. Epoxy goes through 3 stages during the curing process, which start when you mix epoxy hardeners and epoxy resins together. The first stage is called the open time, during which the epoxy is in its liquid state. During this stage, the hardener and resin are mixed to kickstart the chemistry reaction. The mixture will remain in liquid form and is workable during this first stage of curing. Any clamping and assembly that needs to take place should be done in this stage to ensure reliable bond at the end. The next stages of the epoxy curing process is called the initial phase. In this stage, your epoxy mixture will start to adopt a gel form. In other words, it will be partially cured. During stage 2, your epoxy is not workable anymore. Instead, its consistency will quickly change from being tacky to being firm, like hard rubber. The final stage of the curing process for epoxy is where the epoxy becomes solid. In this stage, because the chemical reaction has been completed, you can easily dry, sand, and shape the epoxy. During the final stage, you shouldn't be able to make a dent in the epoxy using your thumbnail like you did in the stage 2. That's because the epoxy would have reacted the majority of its strain at this stage. During the next several days, your epoxy will keep curing while at room temperature until it becomes fully cured. Cure time is the amount of time it takes for the epoxy to reach maximum hardness and protection. The chemical reaction that cures mixed epoxy is exothermic or heat generating. Typically, most epoxy coatings will be dry in 12 to 24 hours and fully cured in 7 to 14 days at 25 centigrades. The variable is largely temperature and airflow. The more airflow, the faster the epoxy will dry, and the higher the temperature, the faster the epoxy will cure. Therefore, we can increase cure speed with heat or increasing the ventilation. The general rule of thumb is for every 10 centigrade increase in temperature, the cure time is cut in half. An undercured component will still feel slightly sticky or gummy, while a well-cured part will feel smooth and hard. A useful way to look at the cured epoxy is to carry out a difference scanning colorimetry, or DSC. DSC measures the energy input or output of the solid resin as it is scanned for low to high temperatures. Thanks for your attention. I hope you enjoy. Please share your thoughts, comments, or questions, and I will come back to you soon. Thank you.